Hello, I'm W.T. Edmonson and welcome to Focus. Freedom often causes unbelievable silence. Well, Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018, citizens of Jefferson City will go to the polls and elect candidates to the school board. And last day to register will be Wednesday, March the 7th. So if you're not registered, please do so by March the 7th. 2 seats are up for election this term, and the successful candidate, of course, will have to make some very important decisions on behalf of the school system. So we hope that you will take the opportunity to educate yourselves on the candidates and what their positions are and what you would like to see coming out of the school board. JCTV is pleased to bring this service to you. It is an opportunity for you to, at your leisure, to watch the candidates, make your assessment, and then be prepared to make an educated decision on April 3rd. Our guests are incumbent Pamela Murry, and her challenger is Ken Enloe, and they are seeking the 2 open seats. Each candidate will be asked to make an opening statement, and we will have probably about 25 to 26 minutes in this segment. We have another program coming up following this, and 2 candidates will also be vying for those 2 open seats. So you will have an opportunity to see both sets of candidates. Welcome to Focus. First of all, I would like to thank you all for your interest and your willingness to serve the community. It is very challenging and a daunting task, but you have volunteered, and I thank you for that. First, I will give the challenger the opportunity to make his opening statement first, and we ask you to tell us why you wish to be for the citizens of Jefferson City to elect you to this board, and of course tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Ken Enloe. I'm currently Director of Human Resources and Business Development for Huber & Associates, a local information technology services firm. And I have really a lifelong connection to Jefferson City Public Schools. I am proud to be a public school graduate, alumni. I attended kindergarten through 12th grade Jefferson City Public Schools, as did my siblings and both my daughters, and now I have a grandson who's a student in the public schools, his 1st grade at Morrow Heights. And so I have a tremendous interest in the success of the public schools, and that's part of the reason why I'm running. I have almost 30 years of management, organizational leadership experience, both in the public and private sector. I had a 13-year career with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for the state of Missouri prior to joining Huber & Associates almost 20 years ago, and majority of that career, both with DESE and with Huber & Associates, has been in organizational leadership and management. And I believe that that's given me a tremendous amount of insight to how successful organizations operate and how they are, in fact, should be run. My wife, Karen, joins me as a very passionate supporter of public education. We'll celebrate 42 years of marriage in May, and as I said, we have 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. My desire to serve is really driven by one thing, and that's love for this community. I grew up here and just love Jefferson City and want us to see us succeed as a community, and I firmly believe that the excellent public and private schools is a major factor in the overall success of our community.
Thank you. Ms. Murry?
Well, first, I'd like to thank you, WT and JCTV, for hosting this event. My name is Pam Murry, and I am an incumbent. I was first elected to the school board in 2015. I first came to Missouri in 1982 when my husband worked for the Centers for Disease Control, and his children, my stepchildren, attended Jefferson City Public Schools. We are both retired. Excuse me. I am retired from healthcare, and my three stepchildren live in the area, as do 4 of our grandchildren. 2 of those grandchildren attend the University of Missouri, and the other 2 children are enrolled in Jefferson City Public Schools. When I worked in healthcare, I learned the importance of adhering to proven practices and proven principles to achieve the greatest patient outcome. The same holds true in education and really in most industries, that if you stick to what's tried and true and in your policies, you're better guaranteed to have a good outcome for our students. I constantly search for opportunities for improvement. That was my role in healthcare, was to seek ways to improve, because I think that no matter how good you are, there are always opportunities to improve, but first they have to be identified, and then they have to be, you need a planned approach and implement it. My vision is to have all students reach their potential, whether that's to go on for more formal education or enter the workforce. And I think that we do that by using our resources, which are many at the school district, to support those students in their learning and to support our teachers to remove obstacles from their path in teaching. During my time on the school board, I'm very pleased that we were able to buy the first series of textbooks in 10 years. We're getting ready to buy our second series now. The central office has been realigned so that I think that we now have a better opportunity to approach student achievement. We have our first ever chief of learning. And thanks to the voters, we are addressing our facility needs. Many of our schools are overcrowded. And with a second high school under construction and our first high school scheduled for massive renovations, we have a lot going on that started in the past 3 years, and I certainly would like to see it through further because there are additional facility needs and, as I said, always room for improvement.
Well, thank you very much for your opening statements. Mr. Enloe, what is the purpose of the school board, and what is the role of the elected board member?
So I had some experience, kind of secondhand experience with school boards. My father actually served on the school board here in Jefferson City back in the late 80s and late 70s, early 80s. And so I remembered a little bit, from his experience. I also have a very close friend who's been on the school board in Independence, Missouri, and visited with him. But I've also done recently some research on Missouri State School Boards Association website to understand and to learn. And they have some training, actually, resources and videos for anyone considering the board. And I've watched those and I've looked at those. And so I really tried to evaluate honestly. And I believe it really comes down to a couple of things. One is being, I see as an important role as being an advocate and an ambassador for the school district in the community. I have long worked and been involved as a business partner with Jefferson State Public Schools and been building bridges between our business community and the public schools. And I think that's an important role. And I hope to continue that and to build on that as a board member. And then ultimately it's to obviously set budget, set policy, to work with the superintendent to ensure that the priorities and the goals and the objectives of the district that are established by the board and approved are ultimately implemented by the superintendent and by the administration.
Thank you. Ms. Murry?
Well, I agree with what Ken said, but I don't think that the role stops there. The purpose of the school board is we are the direct elected officials for the school district. And as such, we are the ones directly answerable to the public. The purpose of the Board of Education, as he said, is to set a budget, establish your policies and your strategic plan, which would include your goals and objectives. And all of those documents should support each other. For example, your budget very clearly states what your priorities are. So the purpose of the Board of Education is also outlined in the revised statutes of Missouri. And we do employ the superintendent. We also have tremendous oversight responsibilities, as does every elected official. The buck stops with the Board of Education. And I think the role of a school board member is, first of all, to remember that the power of the board comes from the entire body. We are a body of 7. As individuals, we are limited to the roles of advocacy and ambassadorship and cheerleading. However, as a body, our role is to provide oversight and accountability, and certainly as a public body, we are by law required to be transparent, and we certainly should be transparent because we serve the community.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask you to make your comments very concise. We have a number of questions that we wanted to get answered. The next question is, what experience and expertise do you bring to the board? Ms. Murry?
Well, as I said in my opening with healthcare, my job was, I worked in both the public and private sector. And as such, I see the advantages of both organizations and try to bridge that gap. The private sector can act faster. The public sector has additional responsibilities to the public. My expertise has always been in management and administration, in streamlining and providing accountability, adherence to regulations, adherence to policies. I also have experience on boards and in government. I've been a member of the board of the Mid-Missouri Regional Planning Commission, the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. I've served on the Holt Summit City Council. I've been a board member and founding member of the Holt Summit Community Betterment Association, as well as other organizations. So I feel like I have a good grasp of what the roles are and how to achieve excellence.
Okay. Mr. Enloe.
So I think I would say my number one qualification is a passionate supporter of public education, and I think that's the ultimate qualification for any board member. And that relates to, as I said, personal experience, but also professional experience. And clearly, my almost 30 years in management and leadership will serve very well in terms of understanding, again, how organizations run. And I think I also then want to really focus on bringing positive leadership to the board. I think there are so many examples today in the public discourse of negative and really not a positive approach to any issue and any challenge that comes before an organization. And my experience has been that successful organizations focus on positive solutions and collaborative solutions. And so, again, my professional experience and my personal passion, I think, bring together, come together to bring that valuable asset and resource to the board.
Thank you. Mr. Enloe, what are the top 3 issues confronting the Jefferson City Public Schools system that needs to be addressed within the next 3 years? And I know that it's a lot, so we can't elaborate too much on it. If you can just.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, to identify the top 3, as we sit here today, those would be, the major construction facilities projects that are underway clearly have to be considered a top priority. We have to fulfill the commitment we made to the public when we asked them to support the bond issue and to invest in the future. And so clearly, good use of those resources as we look at facilities going forward clearly has to be, I think, a priority. And I have worked very, very hard, very public from the very beginning in support of the J+C and ask the public to step up. So that clearly has to be one. I think then there are others that, again, at the present time, security and safety is clearly on the minds of everyone. And that, in light of the recent events in Florida and other places in the country, security and safety of our students has to be considered a top priority. And then I think just overall excellence and ensuring that, again, our students are achieving their full potential, and that we are seen as a premier district in the state of Missouri.
Okay. Ms. Murry.
Well, I think our number one goal is to continue to improve our student achievement, and that means bringing up all student achievement. Currently, we have, like many districts in the state, a gap between achievement between our subgroups, which are your minorities, and your children with individualized education plans. So we need to focus on all that achievement. One of those ways to do that is by retaining experienced teachers, so that our ratio of experienced teachers is good compared to our incoming new teachers. We also need to adhere very closely to fiscal management. With a $130 million bond issue, we have an awful lot of requests on what to do with that money and how to spend it and where it should go and where it shouldn't. And it's very important to make sure that we are vigilant watchdogs on behalf of the taxpayer to make sure that our fiscal management stays good. Additionally, we do have more facility needs. As a member of the Long Range Facility Planning Committee that made its report in November of 2014, we identified additional needs for facilities. Our middle schools are overcrowded. We have continued to kick the can down the road on building another elementary school on the east end of Jefferson City, which the district first bought land for in 1967. So we have a number of issues, and as a member of the Safety and Security Committee, as well as chair of the Policy Committee, I try to approach those issues incrementally every month.
Okay. Ms. Murry, both of you spoke about the construction of the new high school. What will you do as a board member to ensure that minority and women who are part of this community benefit from the construction of this new high school?
Well, as a public body, all our projects have to be bid publicly. I have tried to disseminate information out to the community regarding how to contact our construction manager at risk for firms that are interested in pre-qualifying when the bids go out. I have also tried to disseminate information when bid packages are out so that companies can bid. There was no specific set aside for minority or women-owned businesses. So under the Missouri Constitution, we are required to have the lowest best bid. That doesn't mean you meet both. You must meet the combination. I think that we also need to be very vigilant in our hires. We anticipate only hiring approximately 25 additional teachers to staff the second high school because we will be closing Simonson. And I think that's important that as a board that we make sure that we stress our priority needs to be that we have members of our staff at all levels that are reflective of the student body.
Mr. Enloe.
So as it relates to construction, as you said in your question, I think that I've heard from the very beginning our discussions, public discussions about the construction, about the building project, that with the architects, the construction managers, everyone involved, I've heard a consistent theme of we want to look at our local community in terms of trying to give opportunity where we can to those local vendors and local businesses. And I think that's great. I think that's obviously, I work for a local, as I said, a local IT company. We are a woman-owned business, and so I know firsthand the challenges sometimes in that arena in terms of business development. But I think that the things that I've heard and seen, I hope that we obviously continue down that path in making sure that we're giving every opportunity to local businesses, that being especially looking at minority and women-owned businesses who can't provide the services that we need. Again, keeping in mind the fiscal responsibility that we have to adhere to.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And I would say that I've worked with the state and dealing with minority and women businesses for a number of years, and I know the gamesmanship that major contractors play in not hiring minorities and not hiring women, putting them out for own job sites. And so we want to make sure that the amount of money that this community is expending, that minority and women benefit from this project. How will you go about ensuring that you are always armed with the facts and you are representing your constituency and not being co-opted with groupthink on the board? Mr. Enloe.
I think that it's all about just listening and learning. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I've said, for many years, if I ever stop learning, I feel like I'll die. And so in terms of personally and professionally, I've continued to learn and grow, and I think that there's clearly a huge responsibility to do the research, to have the conversations with the individuals and the groups and the entities in the community, and again, to have those connections so that you're constantly getting the information that you need to make the right decisions, to make informed decisions. And not, as you said, aligning or listening just to one segment or one small select group, but to ensure that, again, your connections and your audience is broad-based. And I believe my professional experience, my involvement in the community, which has been broad and with many different organizations, will serve in that regard, because I do have a lot of connections in the community in terms of my professional and personal experience, and I intend to leverage those to ensure that I hear from all of the constituents and that we're serving all of the needs of all of the students.
Ms. Murry?
Well, I do my own research whenever an issue comes up. I listen very attentively to what our administrative staff has to say, but I also meet with community groups regularly and have done so ever since I was elected. So every month I will probably meet with a couple of different community groups. Additionally, I have a website, pammurry.org, where I've been posting information every week since I was elected in April of 2015. And there's also an opportunity for people to contact me there with their questions, and I respond. And I think I learn a lot through those questions. I also do very much research on the internet. I check the revised statutes of Missouri quite often when something comes up. I look at different topics. For example, on the construction project, we were, looking at different ways to ensure the project, and I learned a lot on my own through that.
Okay. We'll give you the opportunity to drink a little water there. Mr. Enloe, can you describe a time when you displayed leadership, your display of leadership made the difference in the direction that an organization was ultimately end up going?
Sure, I think, well, a couple of different examples, and one in the public sector when I worked for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I was involved in an agency. I worked in the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, Disability Determinations, which was an agency of DESE that had 5 district offices. And we reached a point where there was a need for some major reorganization or restructuring in the way the workload in our state was distributed among those organizations. And I was one of the district managers from around the state at the table as we met with the Commissioner of Education and assistant commissioners. and found myself in a situation where I knew what I believed was the right thing for us to do in terms of how we approached the changes that were needed. And I was willing to stand up and say that, even though I didn't know how that was going to be received. Later that evening, in meeting with over dinner with some of my peers, they began to echo and say the exact same things that I had said in the open meeting, but none of them had stepped up and said it. And I looked at them and said, why didn't you voice your concerns? Why didn't you voice your, thoughts about this when we were in an audience that with the commissioner and the assistant commissioner? And I think it was just an example that I've always been very upfront and very open and very honest about what I believe is right. And so that was clearly an example where I had to step up and say, this is what I believe we should do. And it in fact did impact the outcome of that.
Okay. Ms. Murry?
Well, I can think of a couple of examples. Let me start with two from my time on the school board. My very first year on the school board, I'd just been there a couple of months, and we were asked to approve a contract. Well, the contract was not included in our meeting packet, and so I made a motion to delay, and after 20 minutes of discussion, we discovered the contract not only hadn't been written, it hadn't been negotiated. So that decision was deferred until all those documents were in place. Another instance happened in the past year or so. There was an opportunity for the school district to purchase land on Roland Street that would have broken up, completely divided a historic neighborhood. The board wanted to move forward with great haste. However, we got citizens involved. All the neighbors were supposed to be notified, and when they weren't, Michael Kuti and I went door to door in the entire neighborhood to inform them of when meetings were going to take place so their voices would be heard. Their voices were heard. I can think of two instances in my past. One was when I was on the city council in Holt Summit, and we were part of CAMPO, which doles out transportation funds in the area. And we had a grant submitted for some of those funds to put a sidewalk next to North Elementary School. At the time, they wanted to put money aside for Adrian's Island and just leave it in a pot under discussion. After bringing that to light and getting support of the school district and Dr. Kimball at the time, we got that delayed, and the sidewalk program for that elementary school started. And then when I worked in the private sector in pharmaceutical research, the company I worked for was contracted to do a research study involving children under the age of 6, and I felt the study as structured was unethical. And as a result, the study was modified, changed to have less of a physical impact on the children, but I still declined to participate, even though I did not know if that meant I would have a job at the end of the day.
Thank you very much. We're coming close to our end of our segment, but we want to close with a combination of questions. What strategy will you bring to the board designed to significantly increase the number of minority teachers and administrative staff? Plus, how will you deal with the discipline policies currently administered by the school system? There is some disparity there, and I think it has to be addressed. Mr. Enloe.
So as I began to consider running for the board, I began attending meetings last summer so that I could, again, understand, learn, and begin to hear the workings of the board. And over the course of attending those meetings, I have heard many reports that have been brought forward from administrators, and both from the administrative side regarding the discipline issues, also then from the Human Resources Department, and Shelby Scarborough, the HR director, about their efforts and the programs that have been put in place and the efforts that they're making in terms of recruitment for minorities specifically. And so I have seen, in looking at statistics from minority representation in our faculty and staff, there has been some improvement, but there clearly can be more. And I think that the district, from what I have seen as a member of the public and hearing the reports, there is continued work on that effort in terms of minority recruitment.
Okay. Ms. Murry.
Yes, we do have a new human resources coordinator who started last July, and I am very optimistic. In just her first couple of months, she brought us reports to help us address this issue, reports that we were told for several years were not possible to make. She produced them. I think that it is becoming more of a priority, but as I said here 3 years ago, we will have more diversity in our staff when the entire board feels it is a priority. So I continue to press on that issue. We also, through newer administrative staff, have been looking at the discipline issue in an entirely different way. I don't necessarily think that it's a problem with our policies, but rather perhaps how they have been administered. That's not to say that there is a specific problem, because a specific has not been identified, but rather our chief of learning is looking at it in a new way and breaking it down in better ways and trying to get some of the subjectivity out of there. Because as long as you're looking at things very subjectively, you don't really know if you have a problem or not. But certainly we have opportunity for improvement, and I am pleased that we're starting to look at it more closely. I feel like we've made a tremendous progress in the past year on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Murry, closing statement.
First, I want to apologize for everyone listening, especially the guys in the sound booth, for my allergies and frog in my throat. I really wish to serve another 3 years because I feel like we are making good progress, and I would like to build on that progress. And there are so many things underway, looking at diversity in our staff, our discipline, working on the facilities, and trying to move forward on meeting all the other needs of the district. I feel like the past 3 years have put me in a very good position in terms of oversight and moving forward, and I certainly would appreciate the support of the voters and the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, for this opportunity to bring forward. Again, we hope that people are involved and they understand the issues and the positions of the candidates, and so we thank you for the opportunity to do that. I really want to focus on positive leadership. I really truly believe that there's no question that you can approach any challenge, any opportunity from either a critical, negative perspective or a positive and collaborative perspective. And my experience and my intent is to do that with every challenge that we face. I want us to see us continue to focus on excellence. We have a great history and a reputation and foundation to build on at Jefferson City Public Schools, and I think we can build on that. And I want to help fulfill the commitment that we made to the public when we asked them to invest in the future. I worked from the very beginning. I knocked on doors. I put up signs. I was out front, a vocal supporter of the J+C bond issue from the very beginning. And I said to people in the community, I believe this is a turning point for us. If we're not willing to invest in the future and in our children, then I think we're sending a very bad message. And so they stepped up, and I help, feel like I want to really help fulfill and ensure that we live out that commitment that we made when we said we want you to invest in the future.
Thank you very much. You have had an opportunity to hear two of the candidates, Ms. Pam Murry and Ken Enloe. They are both seeking the 2 open seats on the school board. We also have 2 additional candidates that are also seeking those 2 open seats. So we hope you take the time to educate yourselves on the issues, educate yourselves on what positions that the candidates are taking, and whether they line up with where you are. So we hope you do, in fact, remain involved in this process. You can't complain if you're not involved. So we hope that you do get involved and ensure that you vote on April the 3rd. We'll see you next time. God bless.